The Vryn hegemony had ruled 47 star systems for 300 years. Their warships painted the void with fire, and their armies crushed resistance on 1,000 worlds. When the Galactic Council met, the Vryn spoke and others listened. When the Vryn wanted something, they took it. This was the way of things. Humanity had joined the Council 200 years ago. They came in small ships, speaking soft words about peace and cooperation. They claimed 12 systems near a yellow star they called Sol. The Vryn watched them carefully at first, waiting for humanity to show its teeth. All species had teeth, but the humans never bared theirs. Year after year, humans sent diplomats to council meetings. They voted for peaceful resolutions. They built trade stations, not weapons platforms. They terraformed planets and grew food. When pirates raided human convoys, humans called for council intervention instead of sending warships. The Vryn observed this weakness with growing contempt. They are sheep, High Commander Zareth told the Hegemony Council. They pretend civilization makes them strong, but they have forgotten how to fight. The other Vryn commanders agreed. Human space would be easy to take. 12 systems full of resources defended by nothing but words and hopes. But the Council's laws prevented open war between member species. The Vryn needed an excuse, a test to see if humanity would respond with force. The mining colony on Arcturus 7 seemed perfect. It was far from Earth, barely defended, with 50,000 humans extracting rare metals from the rocky world. The hegemony claimed the system had been theirs centuries ago, before the humans arrived. Ancient documents supported this claim. The Council would debate for years before reaching any conclusion. Zareth did not wait for debates. His fleet arrived at Arcturus 7 without warning. 20 warships against mining equipment and civilian transports. The humans sent desperate messages asking for time to evacuate. Zareth gave them 6 hours. When the 6 hours ended, his ships opened fire. The colony burned. 50,000 humans died in their homes and workplaces, turned to ash by plasma cannons. The human response shocked Zareth more than any military action could have. They did nothing. Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council gave a formal statement. Her name was Ambassador Chen, a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She stood before the Council and spoke in a steady voice. The hegemony has murdered 50,000 civilians on Arcturus 7. This is a violation of Council law and common decency. We demand immediate hegemony withdrawal from human space and reparations for the families of the dead. The Council members made sympathetic sounds. Several species condemned the attack. But when the vote came for sanctions against the hegemony, it failed. Too many species feared Vryn retaliation. The hegemony was too powerful, too connected. Better to sacrifice some humans than risk war. Ambassador Chen listened to the vote results without expression. Then she spoke again, and this time something in her voice made the entire chamber fall silent. The hegemony will withdraw immediately from all human systems. This is your only warning. Zareth, watching from his flagship, laughed so hard his breathing tubes whistled. A warning? From the humans? What would they do, send more diplomats? Within a week, hegemony forces occupied 3 more human worlds. They were small outposts, barely populated, but rich in resources. The humans evacuated civilians before the Vryn arrived. No shots were fired. The hegemony planted their flags and claimed victory. Far from these conquered worlds, beyond the edge of human space, something stirred in the darkness. Admiral Keiko Tanaka had served in Earth's military for 60 years. For the last 40, she had commanded a fleet that nobody knew existed. She lived on a massive station hidden in the Oort cloud, that shell of ice and rock at the very edge of the Sol system. Every day she went through the same routines. Equipment checks, crew drills, maintenance schedules. Every day she hoped the activation order would never come. The order arrived on a quantum-encrypted channel, directly from Earth's Defense Council. 5 words appeared on her screen. Protocol Midnight. Authorization Alpha 1. Tanaka stared at those words for a long moment. She had known this day might come, had trained for it, had built her entire career around preparing for it. But knowing and experiencing were different things. She pressed her hand against the authentication pad. Her voice was steady when she spoke. All stations, this is Admiral Tanaka. Activation Protocol Midnight is now in effect. All personnel to battle stations. Wake the Dreadnoughts. Throughout the hidden station, alarms began to sound. Men and women who had spent decades training for a war they hoped would never come. rushed to their posts. In the darkness beyond the station, buried in the ice and cold of the Oort cloud, ancient systems began to wake. The Dreadnoughts had slept for 200 years. They were humanity's secret, built in the early days after joining the Galactic Council, back when Earth still remembered what it meant to stand alone against hostile forces, back when they understood that the galaxy was not kind to the weak. Each dreadnought was 5 kilometers long. They were not pretty ships. They were designed for one purpose: to kill other ships before those ships knew the dreadnoughts existed. Stealth fields wrapped them in darkness. Their weapons could reach across solar systems, and Earth had built 300 of them. Tanaka watched her screens as the first 12 dreadnoughts powered up. It would take time to wake them all, but 12 would be enough for now. Navigation, plot a course to the Arcturus system, she ordered. It's time the Vryn learned what humanity does to those who hurt our children. Commander Kelvan of the Vryn scout ship Piercing Eye had been tracking spatial anomalies for 3 days. His sensors detected something strange near the edge of human space. Gravitational distortions that appeared and disappeared, mass readings that made no sense, empty space that somehow bent light. Could be a natural phenomenon, his science officer suggested. Perhaps a small black hole or dark matter concentration. Kelvan did not think so. He had been a scout for 20 years. He knew the difference between natural anomalies and something artificial. Something was out there in the darkness, something big. Send a report to Fleet Command, he ordered. Tell them we're investigating unusual readings in the human Oort cloud. We'll maintain position and gather more data. The message was prepared and queued for transmission. It would never be sent. Kelvan's sensors suddenly registered a massive energy spike directly ahead. Then another. Then 12 more. Space itself seemed to crack open as stealth fields dropped. Where there had been nothing, there were now ships. But these were not ships like Kelvan had ever seen. They were enormous, larger than hegemony dreadnoughts, larger than anything in the known galaxy. Their hulls were dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Weapons ports covered their surfaces like the eyes of ancient predators. Contact Fleet Command, Kelvan screamed. Tell them his ship's communication systems went dead, all of them simultaneously. Then the weapons systems failed. Then life support began flickering. The human ships were doing something to his vessel, shutting it down piece by piece without firing a shot. Kelvan watched in horror as one of the massive human ships glided closer. It moved with impossible grace for something so large. A single energy beam, precise and controlled, sliced through the Piercing Eye's engine core. The scout ship went completely dark. In the silence of his dying bridge, Kelvan realized the truth. The humans had never been weak. They had been waiting. High Commander Zareth received reports of lost scout ships with annoyance rather than concern. 3 scouts had gone silent near human space. Probably equipment failures. The Vryn were expanding fast and maintenance sometimes suffered. He dispatched a full battle group to investigate. 50 warships, enough firepower to conquer a small nation. Battle Group Thorn entered the human Oort cloud with weapons ready and shields at maximum. Fleet Commander Darix expected to find debris from the scout ships, perhaps a natural hazard that had destroyed them. What he found instead was nothing. Sensors show empty space, his tactical officer reported. No debris. No anomalies. No threats detected, Darix frowned. 3 scout ships did not simply vanish, but his instruments showed nothing unusual. Just ice, rock, and the vast emptiness between stars. Full spectrum scan, he ordered. Check every wavelength. Something destroyed those scouts. The scan took an hour. It revealed nothing. Darix finally ordered the battle group to return to hegemony space. Whatever had happened here was a mystery, but he could not waste time chasing ghosts. The battle group turned and began accelerating toward the jump point. They made it halfway there before the darkness came alive. 12 massive shapes materialized around the Vryn fleet. One moment there was empty space. The next, the human dreadnoughts surrounded them like sharks circling prey. The Vryn ships immediately raised shields and armed weapons, but they were too slow. Commander Alexei Volkov sat in the command chair of the Silent Thunder and felt the weight of history pressing down on him. His ship had been built 170 years ago. He had commanded it for 30 years, running endless drills and simulations. He had fired weapons in training thousands of times. This would be the first time he fired them in anger. All ships, target priority assigned. Admiral Tanaka's voice came through his communication system. Fire on my mark. Make it clean. Volkov's tactical display showed the Vryn fleet in perfect detail. 50 ships, their shields glowing as they charged weapons. They were preparing to fight. They did not understand that the fight was already over. Weapons ready, Admiral, Volkov reported. Fire. The Dreadnoughts spoke as one. Their weapons were not lasers or plasma cannons like most galactic species used. They were railguns that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds, missiles that could track targets across solar systems, and directed energy weapons that could cut through any known shield. The Vryn fleet lasted 90 seconds. Volkov watched his displays as Vryn ships simply came apart. Railgun rounds punched through shields and hulls like paper. Missiles found engine cores and detonated with surgical precision. The directed energy beams carved through multiple ships at once, leaving nothing but expanding clouds of gas and debris. 49 Vryn ships died. The 50th was left untouched, floating alone in the debris field. Hail the survivor, Admiral Tanaka ordered. Standard encryption. I want them to hear this clearly. Volkov opened the communication channel. Tanaka's face appeared on all dreadnought displays. She looked tired and sad, like someone who had just done something necessary but terrible. Vryn vessel, this is Admiral Keiko Tanaka of Earth Defense Command. You will return to your territory immediately. You will report what you have seen here. Tell your leaders that humanity has been patient. Tell them we hoped for peace. But tell them also that if one more human dies by Vryn hands, we will respond with overwhelming force. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The communication ended. The 12 dreadnoughts engaged their stealth fields and vanished, leaving the lone Vryn ship floating in a graveyard of its own fleet. Commander Darek survived because his ship had been at the edge of the formation. He watched his battle group die in seconds. His crew stood frozen at their stations, too shocked to speak. When the human admiral's message ended, Dareks found his voice. Get us out of here, he whispered. Maximum speed. We need to warn the hegemony. As his ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, Dareks knew the truth that would soon shake the entire galaxy. The humans had never been sheep. They had been wolves pretending to sleep. And now the wolves were awake. The Hegemony Military Council met in emergency session when Commander Dareks returned. The room was built to intimidate, with tall ceilings and walls covered in weapons taken from conquered species. Today, those trophies seemed less impressive. Darek stood before the council, his uniform still stained with coolant fluid from his damaged ship. His hands shook as he uploaded the sensor data from the battle. The council members watched in silence as the footage played. 50 warships reduced to debris in 90 seconds, weapons technology that made hegemony shields useless. Ships larger than anything in their fleet appearing from nowhere. High Commander Zareth watched the footage 3 times. Each viewing made his breathing tubes constrict further. Finally he spoke. This cannot be real. The humans have no military. Our intelligence has confirmed this for 200 years. Our intelligence was wrong, Dari said quietly. I watched it happen. Those ships are real. The weapons are real. And there are more of them. The human admiral said this was just a warning. Zareth slammed his manipulator appendage on the table. Then we mobilize the entire fleet. We strike Earth directly before they can... No. The voice came from Intelligence Director Karin, a old Vryn who rarely spoke in council meetings. When he did speak, others listened. He had survived 7 regime changes by being smarter than his rivals. Explain, Zareth demanded. Karin activated his own data display. I have been reviewing human communications for the past decade. Patterns I thought were normal diplomatic traffic. Coded messages I assumed were trade negotiations. After seeing this footage, I analyzed them again with different assumptions. The display showed a web of connections across hegemony space. Communication nodes, supply stations, military bases, hundreds of locations marked in red. What am I looking at? Zareth asked. Human intelligence assets, Karin said. They have operatives in our military, our government, our infrastructure networks. These are just the ones I can confirm. There are likely hundreds more I cannot detect. The council chamber fell silent. Several commanders stood and moved closer to the display, studying the red markers in disbelief. For how long? Someone asked. At least 50 years, possibly since they joined the Galactic Council. Karen's voice was almost admiring. The humans have been preparing for this war since the day they arrived. Every diplomatic insult we gave them, every condescending comment, every time we dismissed them as weak, They were watching, learning, and planning. Zareth felt something he had not experienced in his entire military career. Fear. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session 2 days later. Representatives from 73 species filled the chamber. Everyone had heard rumors about what happened to Battlegroup Thorn. Now they would hear the truth. Ambassador Chen walked to the central platform. She carried a data crystal in her hand. For 200 years she had stood in this chamber and been dismissed, interrupted, ignored. Today, every eye in the room followed her movements. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "Humanity has served on this council for 200 years. In that time, we have proposed 417 resolutions for peaceful conflict resolution. 392 were rejected or ignored. We have been raided by pirates 47 times. The council took action 0 times. We have been insulted, dismissed, and patronized at nearly every meeting." She inserted the data crystal into the central projector. The air above the platform filled with images. Humans being mocked at council meetings. Human trade convoys destroyed with no response. Human colonies threatened. And finally, Arcturus 7 burning. "We recorded everything," Chen said. "Every slight. Every act of aggression. Every moment when the council chose politics over justice. And we learned an important lesson. The galaxy does not respect laws or diplomacy. It respects only power." The projection changed. Now it showed the 12 dreadnoughts decloak around the Vryn fleet. It showed the 90-second battle. It showed the aftermath. "This is a fraction of our military capability," Chen continued. "Earth currently maintains 300 dreadnoughts in active service. We have maintained this fleet for 200 years, hoping we would never need to use it. We built them because we understood what many of you refuse to acknowledge. Peace is only possible when you have the strength to enforce it." A counselor from the Thelian Confederacy raised a tentacle. "Are you threatening this council?" "No." Chen's expression softened. "We are offering you a choice. The galaxy can continue as it has, with the strong preying on the weak and the council serving as theater, or we can build something better. A council with actual enforcement power, laws that protect the weak because the strong know there will be consequences. And if we refuse?" Zareth's voice boomed from the hegemony section. "What then, Ambassador?" Chen met his gaze. "Then humanity will withdraw from the council and defend our own interests. We will continue to trade with those who wish to trade. We will defend ourselves against any aggression, and we will leave the rest of you to sort out your own affairs. While watching us with your ghost fleet," Zareth said bitterly. "Yes," Chen agreed. "We will watch, because that is what responsible powers do. They prepare for the worst while hoping for the best." The council debated for 3 hours. Finally, a vote was called. 41 species voted to restructure the council with Earth as a permanent security member. 23 voted against. 9 abstained. The hegemony voted against, along with their client states. Zareth left the chamber immediately after the vote, his entourage following behind. Back in hegemony space, the panic was already spreading. 3 client states declared neutrality within hours of the council vote. 2 more opened secret channels to Earth, requesting independent trade agreements. The Empire's carefully constructed alliance network was crumbling. Emperor Vorak called his military commanders to the throne room. He had ruled the hegemony for 60 years, expanding its territory and crushing all opposition. He was not accustomed to fear. "Give me options," he demanded. "How do we fight an enemy we cannot see?" High Commander Zareth stepped forward. "We mobilize everything. 5,000 warships. We strike at Earth directly. Destroy their homeworld before they can respond." "And their dreadnoughts?" Director Karen asked. "Where will they be while our fleet travels to Earth? What if they appear in orbit of our homeworld instead?" The question hung in the air. Nobody had an answer. In a small apartment in the hegemony capital city, a human woman named Sarah Miller listened to the military council's discussion through surveillance devices she had planted years ago. She sent an encrypted message to Earth through channels the Vryn did not know existed. The message was simple. "Emperor planning desperate strike. Recommend defensive posture." Sarah had lived on the hegemony homeworld for 30 years. She owned a successful restaurant. She had Vryn friends and regular customers. She was also one of 300 human intelligence operatives scattered across hegemony space. The humans had been preparing for this war since the beginning. And preparation, Sarah knew, was how you won wars before they started. The hegemony's war fleet assembled over 6 weeks, 5,000 warships from every corner of their empire. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and dreadnoughts. It was the largest military force the galaxy had seen in 3 centuries. Emperor Vorak addressed his commanders from the bridge of his flagship Eternal Dominion. "We will show these humans what true power means," he declared. "We will burn Earth to ash and scatter their dreadnoughts across space." Today, the hegemony reclaims its dominance. The fleet departed in 3 massive waves, each taking different routes toward human space. The strategy was simple. Overwhelm the humans with numbers, force them to spread their dreadnoughts thin, then strike where they were weakest. The first wave never reached human space. Fleet Admiral Tershan commanded Wave 1 from his battlecruiser. 1,200 ships jumping through hyperspace in perfect formation. They would emerge 3 light-years from Earth and begin the bombardment. Except they never emerged from hyperspace. When ships entered hyperspace, they traveled through a dimension where normal physics did not apply. Navigation required precise calculations and constant course corrections. Someone had altered the navigation beacons that guided Fleet Admiral Tershan's ships. The entire wave emerged from hyperspace inside a star. 1,200 ships died instantly. The few emergency beacons that survived transmitted confused final messages before being consumed by stellar fire. Wave 2 made it further. 2,000 ships commanded by Admiral Krivon. They emerged at the correct coordinates and began advancing toward Earth. Then their supply ships started disappearing. Fuel tankers, ammunition carriers, food transports. One by one, they vanished without distress signals. Krivon ordered his combat ships to escort the supply vessels. It made no difference. Ships disappeared even when surrounded by warships. Something was out there picking them off, and the Vrin sensors detected nothing. After losing 40% of his supplies, Krivon was forced to retreat. His fleet limped back to hegemony space on emergency reserves, having never fired a shot. Wave 3 was commanded by High Commander Zareth himself. He was determined to succeed where the others failed. 1,800 warships, all staying close together for mutual protection. They would not be picked off one by one, but the humans did not try to pick them off. They simply made Zareth's fleet disappear. The dreadnoughts had been designed with one core principle: information warfare. Control what the enemy sees, knows, and believes. Make them fight ghosts while you remain invisible. Commander Alexei Volkov had spent 40 years studying ancient human military theory. Submarine warfare, guerrilla tactics, psychological operations. Target their communications first, he told his tactical team. Make them blind and deaf. Then we show them what fear really means. 20 dreadnoughts surrounded Zareth's fleet. They did not decloak. They did not fire weapons. Instead, they activated electronic warfare systems that human scientists had been perfecting for 2 centuries. Every sensor in the Vrin fleet suddenly showed thousands of human ships. They appeared on all sides, impossible numbers, weapons charging. Vrin commanders screamed orders, trying to coordinate defensive fire. They shot at targets that did not exist while the real dreadnoughts watched. Then the human psychological warfare broadcasts began. Every communication channel in Zareth's fleet suddenly carried the same message. A human voice, calm and patient, speaking in perfect Vrin language. You cannot see us. You cannot predict us. We do not want your worlds or your resources. We only want you to leave us alone. But if you continue this war, we will haunt you forever. You will never know where we are. You will never feel safe. Every shadow will hide our ships. Every empty space will make you wonder. The broadcast repeated for 6 hours. Vrin crew members began reporting stress casualties. 3 ships mutinied, their crews refusing to continue. Zareth ordered the fleet to retreat, but by then human hackers had compromised his navigation systems. Half his ships jumped to wrong coordinates. The other half made it back to hegemony space, but their crews were broken. The war had lasted 6 weeks. The hegemony had lost over 3,000 ships. They had not seen a single dreadnought besides the initial encounter. They had not damaged a single human vessel. And now their empire was falling apart from within. In the hegemony capital, riots broke out. Citizens demanded to know why their military was losing to an enemy nobody could see. 3 more client states declared independence. The emperor's own guards began discussing whether their loyalty was worth dying for. Emperor Vorak sat alone in his throne room, watching reports of his empire's collapse. His military commanders had failed. His intelligence services had failed. His entire strategy had been based on the assumption that he understood warfare better than the humans. He had been wrong. A communication request came through on his private channel. Encryption codes identified the sender as Earth Defense Command. Vorak almost rejected it. Then curiosity won over pride. Admiral Tanaka's face appeared on his display. She looked as tired as he felt. "Emperor Vorak," she said, "this war needs to end before more people die. You have already won," Vorak said bitterly. "Why contact me now?" "Because winning the war is not our goal. Peace is our goal. The Dreadnoughts were never meant to conquer. They were meant to deter. Then why build so many? Because deterrence only works if the threat is credible, and because we learned from our own history. Humanity spent 10,000 years fighting itself. We know what war costs. We know the difference between strength and cruelty." Vorak considered her words. "What do you want from me?" "Withdraw from all human systems. Face justice for the Arcturus massacre. Accept new Galactic Council oversight. And in return, your empire survives. Your people live. Your culture continues, and if I refuse?" Tanaka's expression did not change, but something in her eyes made Vorak's blood run cold. "Then I have orders to deploy all 300 dreadnoughts. Not around your fleets, Emperor. Around your home world. We will give you 1 hour to evacuate your capital city. After that, we demonstrate what our weapons can actually do when we stop holding back." Vorak understood the implication. The battle so far had been warnings, demonstrations. The humans had been fighting with one hand tied behind their backs. "You would destroy an entire city to prove a point?" "No," Tanaka said quietly. "I would destroy an entire city to save millions more lives. To show the galaxy what happens when someone forces us to stop being patient. I pray it never comes to that. But if it does, I will not hesitate." The communication ended. Vorak sat in his throne, facing the hardest decision of his life. 3 hours later, he gave the order to withdraw all hegemony forces from human space. The war was over. The hegemony had lost to an enemy they never really saw, and that terrified them more than any military defeat could have. The surrender ceremony took place on a neutral station orbiting a dead world between human and hegemony space. Emperor Vorak arrived with a minimal escort as required by the terms. Ambassador Chen waited for him in a simple conference room. No grand throne chamber, no symbols of dominance, just a table and 2 chairs. "Thank you for coming, Emperor," Chen said. Vorak studied the human woman who had stood before the council for so many years, absorbing insults with calm dignity. He understood now that her patience had never been weakness. It had been strategy. "I had little choice," he replied. "Your Admiral Tanaka made the alternatives clear. Admiral Tanaka does what she must. As do I, as do you." Chen gestured to a chair. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." The negotiations took 3 weeks. The hegemony would withdraw from all occupied human systems. They would pay reparations to the families who lost loved ones at Arcturus 7th. High Commander Zareth and 15 other officers would face trial for war crimes at an international tribunal. The hegemony would reduce its military by 40% and allow council inspectors to verify compliance. In exchange, humanity would not destroy the hegemony's infrastructure or occupy their worlds. The dreadnoughts would return to their hidden positions and become dormant once more. "Why show mercy?" Vorak asked during the final session. "You could crush us completely. Take our territory. Destroy our military. Because that would make us conquerors," Chen answered. "Humanity learned something during our violent history. Conquest creates enemies. Justice creates partners. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We want to live in it peacefully. But you will enforce that peace with your dreadnoughts." "Yes. Because peace without enforcement is just a pleasant dream, but enforcement without mercy is tyranny. We are trying to find the balance between those extremes." Vorak signed the treaty with his own blood, as Vryn tradition demanded for agreements of great importance. When he left the station, he carried with him the knowledge that his empire would survive, but would never again be the dominant power it once was. The Galactic Council underwent massive restructuring. The new council charter created an enforcement division with the power to investigate violations and impose sanctions. Earth held one of 3 permanent security seats, alongside the Thelian Confederacy and the Cathani Collective. The other seats rotated among member species. More importantly, the council now had actual power. Species who violated the charter faced consequences, Pirates found their hiding stations destroyed by forces they never saw coming. Aggressive empires discovered that conquest came with heavy costs. The galaxy's bullies learned caution. Not everyone was happy with the changes. Some species resented Earth's power. They whispered that humans had become what they claimed to oppose. They pointed to the dreadnoughts and called them weapons of oppression. Ambassador Chen addressed these concerns at a council session 6 months after the war's end. "Some of you fear human power," she said. "That fear is rational. We have demonstrated capabilities that exceed any other species. But consider what we have done with that power. We did not conquer the hegemony. We did not seize territory or demand tribute. We enforced justice and then withdrew. The dreadnoughts are not weapons of conquest. They are weapons of last resort." A young representative from the Celian Union stood. Her species had joined the council only 20 years ago. "But how do we know you will not change? Power corrupts, Ambassador. What if future human leaders decide to use your dreadnoughts differently?" Chen smiled sadly. "You do not know. Neither do we. That is why we have shown you what we built. That is why we operate transparently within the new council framework. We are not asking for trust based on promises. We are earning trust through actions." She paused, looking around the chamber at representatives from dozens of species. "Every species in this chamber has weapons. Every species has the capacity for violence. What matters is not the weapons we carry, but the restraint we show in using them. Humanity has been restraining itself for 200 years. We built the dreadnoughts and hid them away, hoping never to use them. Even when we did use them, we showed mercy. We could have destroyed the hegemony completely. We chose not to. Why?" the Celian representative asked. "Because we remember what it feels like to be weak. Because we know that any of you, given the right circumstances, might need protection someday. And because we genuinely believe that a galaxy at peace is better for everyone, including humanity." Admiral Keiko Tanaka retired 3 months later. She was 78 years old and had spent 40 years commanding a fleet in absolute secrecy. The weight of that responsibility had aged her beyond her years. She spent her final weeks in service training her replacement and ensuring the dreadnought fleet would continue operating according to its original principles. Commander Alexei Volkov took command of the fleet at a small ceremony attended by only a dozen people. Admiral Tanaka gave him one piece of advice. The dreadnoughts exist to prevent war, not to fight it. Every day that passes without using them is a successful day. Never forget that. Volkov promised to remember. He had fired weapons in anger once, and the memory haunted him. 90 seconds of destruction that ended 49 ships and countless lives. He was determined to never fire again if he could avoid it. The dreadnoughts returned to their hidden positions throughout human space. The stealth fields reactivated. On sensors and scopes throughout the galaxy, they simply vanished. But everyone knew they were out there, watching, waiting, hoping to remain dormant forever. Humanity's colony worlds began to rebuild. Arcturus VII was terraformed again, and a memorial was built for the 50,000 who died there. The names of every victim were carved in stone that would last 10,000 years. Above the memorial, a simple message was inscribed. They died so we would remember. Peace requires vigilance. Vigilance requires strength. Strength requires restraint. Let this place remind us of all three. Sarah Miller, the intelligence operative who had spent 30 years in the hegemony capital, returned to Earth. Her mission was complete. The network of human agents throughout the galaxy began transitioning from military intelligence to diplomatic support. They would still watch and listen, but now they looked for opportunities to help rather than threats to counter. 5 years after the war, a new species applied for Galactic Council membership. The Drax Collective was known for aggressive expansion and military strength. They arrived at the council with a fleet of warships and a list of demands rather than requests. An elder counselor from the Thelian Confederacy quietly approached the Drax ambassador during a break. He showed the Drax a data crystal containing footage from the hegemony war. The 12 dreadnoughts appearing from nowhere. The 90-second battle. The aftermath. "See those humans over there?" the Thelian said, gesturing to Ambassador Chen and her small delegation. "They look peaceful and friendly, do they not? They speak of cooperation and mutual benefit. They smile and make jokes. What is your point?" the Drax ambassador demanded. "My point is that you should remember what sleeps in their darkness. The dreadnoughts have been dormant for 5 years. The humans hope they will remain dormant for another 500. But if you make them wake those ships again, You will discover what war truly means. The hegemony learned this lesson. I suggest you learn from their experience rather than your own. The Drax Collective joined the Council 3 months later as peaceful members. They made no demands. They submitted to the new Charter's requirements, and they never threatened human space. Ambassador Chen stood on the observation deck of Earth's Council Station, looking out at the stars. Behind her, the galaxy was slowly transforming. Species that had been enemies for centuries were negotiating peace. Pirates were finding honest work. The Council was actually functioning as it was meant to, but Chen was not naive. She knew this peace was fragile. She knew that humanity's reputation for overwhelming force was the foundation supporting everything else. Remove that foundation and the structure would collapse. Her assistant approached. Ambassador, the quarterly Dreadnought status report is ready for review. How many are currently operational? All 300, Ambassador. Running at peak efficiency. Crews are trained and ready. Commander Volkov reports no issues. And the new designs, the upgrades, proceeding on schedule. By next year we will have 5th-generation stealth capabilities and improved weapon systems. Chen nodded. It was strange preparing for war while working for peace. But that was the burden humanity had chosen to carry. They would maintain the dreadnoughts. They would keep improving them. They would stay ahead of any potential threat, and they would pray that the weapons gathering dust in the darkness would stay there forever. Behind Earth, invisible to any sensors, the dreadnoughts hung in the void. Silent guardians watching over a peace they had helped create. Inside those massive ships, crews went about their routines, running drills, maintaining systems, training for a war they hoped would never come. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed it, and in the darkness between the stars, 300 sleeping giants ensured that the change would last.